in the early 90s, my wife and I would drive around on Sunday afternoons looking around the countryside, trying to see the old roads and stuff like that. That's my wife right there, Martha Barker. And I'm not supposed to embarrass her. And we traveled all over the place. And at one point we were on Highway 473, which runs across the top of Kendall County. And there was a little nursery all by 281 called Little Acres. And this is in the early 90s. We stopped in and we saw that they had some native plants. We live out in the country, and all of a sudden we were kind of like, well, that's kind of cool. Let's learn about that. So as a result of that trip and others like it, we started growing native plants at our house. And it was difficult because we didn't know anything about native plants or how to or even how to identify them. So in the course of that, we started, but after about a year or so, we grew up enough plants we could start selling them. And then eventually we started our little company. It's called Green Cloud Native Plants. And for those of you that are really old, I was going to call it purple haze plants, but I couldn't do that. So here we go, native plants from seed. There are a lot of people that do cuttings, and cuttings are a separate area. It takes a lot of work and knowledge that I don't have. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about seed collection and storage, seed preparation, and then finally planting stuff. So the first thing is availability date. When do you collect the seeds? It turns out that that's a difficult call, and most people you can't remember when to do it. So one of the things we've done is we've created a sheet. This took me about 4 or 5 years to do. I had a little notebook and I'd write down the collection dates on it, and then eventually I compiled them into a sheet. And so basically, as you can see up here, it's by common name primarily. On the left-hand side is the month, then the name of the plant, and roughly what the dates are. The only problem with that is with global warming or climate change, whatever your choice is, these dates are a little bit off. But generally, if you want to collect a certain plant, look at the list, and you'll find the plant, and then you'll find roughly when to start looking out in nature for them. I do have and will have available for you a bunch if you want one. I don't know. You want to pass them out now? Yeah.
If you're a couple, please just take one because we don't have.
Well, they may not want one because they're not interested in this. But
or if you don't want.
Anyway, so the first topic is seed collection and
to the other side.
Seed collection and storage. The hardest part about this, and we had a lot of trouble to begin with, was identifying plants. There aren't a lot of ways. If you go out in the countryside around here, everything's green, and it's really hard to tell what plant is which, so that you can collect seed. So we got a bunch of books, and it turns out in our nursery, we grow primarily woody perennials. We don't grow the soft plants. We don't grow annuals. So some of these books don't work very well, but these are all the ones we use. If anyone who's ever done this knows that the Bible is Enquist. That was published in 1986. He still maintains the rights to publish it himself. He is the publisher. He has somebody else print it, of course. But anyway, a bunch of books to look at a bunch of pictures and try to figure out what you've got when you're out in the boonies. Also need a bunch of tools. So what we have here is, these are all the things I carry around in my truck or my car. I have a box in each one. You'll notice that there's Ziploc bags, latex gloves. If you've ever picked evergreen sumac, or Carolina buckthorn. They're purple and they get purple all over you. Evergreen sumacs, the seeds have like a varnish and they're real sticky. The latex gloves are necessary. Wet ones to clean your hands if you forget the gloves. And then these guys right here. And these are paint strainer bags. Anybody seen these before? If you've got a can of paint and you want to get it strained, you get one of these things. So I happen to have a handful of paint strainer bags. And the other thing we do is we put a hoop on them, a darning hoop. That's so you can collect seeds really, really fast. Also, you don't have to try to open the little Ziploc bag or whatever you're carrying and try to get your fingers in it while you're collecting seeds. I can pass it. You want to play with one of these or?
Yes, you can hold it in your mouth.
Oh yeah, that's right. The other thing is if you're collecting maple seeds and you're on a ladder. Actually, and I do actually do that. So you might see some teeth marks on this one. You can get these at Home Depot, by the way. They're really great. One of the nicest things about them is that they're really good for certain kinds of seeds. Grass seeds, it turns out, are really hard to dry. You collect a bunch of grass seeds and put them out and put them in any kind of container, they'll often mildew. So what you can do is you can take one of these bags. This is the 5-gallon size. And what you can do is take the bag, put things inside it, and then I use binder clips, clip it and hang it up somewhere for a while in the air so it can dry. You might find other uses for these too, but the other thing is they're really great for milkweeds. You take the pods, you throw them in the bag, you clip it, you hang them up somewhere, the pods open up naturally and dry out, and then you can pick them all apart and pull the seeds and fluff apart without getting stuff all over the place. Yeah. Yeah, these for milkweeds, I usually let them sit around for 2 or 3 months. I mean, I'm not in a hurry because I'm not going to plant them. And then the other part that's kind of cool about the milkweeds is you've got the pods. You can reach in and pull those old pods and pull them out. You can also pull the fluff out outdoors where it's windy, and then you can you can also take the bag and shake it, and the seeds will all fall down to the bottom. So they're real easy to collect. Yes. Sir? Yeah, small seeds, lots of small seeds. If any kind of small seed that you want to dry out, flower seeds. Lots of times you'll find a flower or something like we have lots of Hymenopsis, 4-nerve daisies, and I like those a lot. And I know it's a soft plant, but anyway. But those things take a while to dry out. In fact, a lot of the composite flower seeds take time to dry out. You can throw them all in the bag, hang them up somewhere, and look at them 2, 3, 6 months later, whenever you're ready to plant them. Yeah, right. Yeah, lots of those. There are a lot of them like that. Anyway, has anybody seen anything else up there that's? Oh, this thing right here is interesting. You see the hook on the end? This is a device that they used to herd cattle at the stock shows. It's also got a hook on the end that hooks on limbs of trees that you gently pull down because you don't want to break them. But that way you can reach up with one hand, pull this thing and pull the seeds off.
Is that a radio check?
That's a radio. That's kind of boring up on that ladder. Huh? You bet. If you ever pick any of the sumacs, they get really, really gooey. So one day I found a cherry tree on the edge of a cliff. So what I did was I took a extension ladder, put 2 ropes tied to you can see where it's all tied up. And by the way, the top of the ladder does not touch a tree at all. It just kind of hangs out there. And at 230 pounds, it's pretty scary up there. Huh? The cherries?
How many?
This year we were really fortunate. We have some friends who gave us seeds. Marvin was one. We got some from Lakey. We got some from another fellow, and we have about 600 on the ground right now. Little cherry trees, escarpment black cherries. Yeah, yeah. My wife and I face each other and at a big wheelbarrow and pot. Things to watch out for while you're out there collecting seeds. You know what they are? I've actually reached into a tree and wasps are hanging right in there. So that's another thing to watch out for. And then, isn't it beautiful? Poison ivy. Seed cleaning devices. Now you got the seeds. A lot of them are fruits. Droops. Droop is a fleshy thing with a seed in the middle, and you want to clean them. What and how to do it. These are all the different things we use to clean seeds, and I can go down the list. But sandwich bags are about the best thing there is. You take your fruity plants, you put them in the fruit. You put them in the sandwich bag. You let them rot for a few days, or let them kind of compost in there when they get nice and soft, and then you squish them through the bag. And you've separated the seed from the pulp. I'll get to the next part. Sieves, strainers, colanders, blender, my favorite. Anybody ever picked redbud seeds, the pods? You try to split them open. I throw them in a blender. My blender screams. And it also smokes a little bit. I'm serious. But as it chops everything up on chop, by the time I get done, I've got a bunch of seeds in the bottom and all the pulpy stuff on the top, and I pour that off, and that's easy. Huh? The seeds, redbud seeds are very hard. There's quite a few different kinds of seeds that are just hard as a rock. Also, the smaller they are, the less likely they are, because of their density, to be hurt by the blades of the blender. So the smaller seeds, I did about 1.5 pounds of possum haw the other day, and they're little tiny seeds, relatively small seeds. I've got somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 seeds, possum haw.
But
I want to.
after your Ziploc baggie, I'm always afraid that if I put seeds in plastic, then the fungus that develops because of the moisture is going to harm the seed.
No.
You're saying that on really fruity like ones that it's okay to do that. How do you know
The fungus
when it's
isn't going to hurt anything. The funguses are actually a natural part of the whole process.
But if you have seeds that mildew, don't rot.
Well, you know, I don't leave them in. I mean, I do it till the flesh is soft, but that's about it.
But what you're saying is you're doing these to ones that have flesh, and you want
Right.
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is it water?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, water. Yeah, yeah. It's a blender. Regular. I do that. By the way, evergreen sumac. I use them for evergreen sumac. It cleans all the sumac seeds beautifully. It also cleans smoke tree seeds, and there are quite a few that works like a champ to clean the seeds, and it's real fast and easy. So let's see, terry cloth. The next one, terry cloth towel. Let's say you've cleaned your seeds up, and there's all kinds of little gritty debris and stuff on them. If the seeds are large enough, you can throw them on a terry cloth towel, lay them all out flat, and then pull the towel up, and all the bad stuff will stay stuck in the towel, and the seeds will roll off the end. Frisbee. Word for the day is winnow. You know it? That's when you use the wind or something to clean the seeds. Well, it turns out that Frisbee is a great thing because it's got a lip on the edge of it, and you can put the seeds in, small seeds in there, and flip it up and down like this, and they'll stay. And you can swish it around and do things. So I've used Frisbees. Blow dryer, same idea. Then you've seen the 5-gallon, these 5-gallon paint strainers. Agarita, you ever try to pick Agarita? Okay, here's a friend of mine showed me this and it just cracked me up. What you do is you get a bunch of old umbrellas and you take the umbrellas and you walk up to the Agarita and you open them up and stick them underneath it. And once they're underneath there, you get a stick and you kind of whack the Agarita and knock all the fruit off. And then you can pull the umbrellas out, halfway close them and pour them into a bucket. That's the first part. The second part is now you've got Agarita, if you've done this, Agarita, weird bugs, leaves, then what? You go home and you get something to sit on, a stool. You take the umbrella, and you open it up, and you pour the Agarita, the berries in it with all the junk, and the blow dryer. And you take the blow dryer and the umbrella, and you go like this, and all the junk goes out, and all the berries remain. We did a half of a 5-gallon bucket that way one day. Perfectly clean. Great jellies. I didn't, it's not on my sheet. Yeah.
Chuck, is that what happens to your hair dryer?
Good one. Okay, so here's a quick example of what I've been talking about. So I didn't have, at the time I made this, I didn't have any fruit or to mess with, but we have a lot of Virginia creepers around the house. So I collected a bunch of Virginia creeper seed with fruit. It's a drupe. It's got little seeds in the center. It's in the grape family, so you can kind of figure that. I put them in a plastic bag and squished them, and they're kind of rotten. I put them in a glass of water. This is the tricky part. The seeds are more dense than the water is, so they sink, and the pulp generally floats. So what you do is you put them in there, you swirl it around with a while, notice the chopstick, and you pour off, decant or pour off the liquid, and then you're stuck with the seeds. And you keep on doing that until the seeds are perfectly clean. It's real easy to do. The next part, here's my sieve homemade. That's a Cool Whip container with little holes in it. And eventually you end up with a bunch of seeds. And the key factor here is dry them. They have to be dry before you can store them. I know, I counted them.
Can you plant them after they've dried?
Yes.
Go ahead and plant.
Yeah, you could plant them right away if you now they may not come up for a year or 6 months. A lot of the seeds, we'll talk about that in a bit. A lot of the seeds require a cold period before they'll germinate. So we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, and then finally label and date. This is the hardest part for me. When I first started out, I didn't put any labels on them, so I didn't know what I had half the time. I also have a real sensitive balance scale, and I weigh them. And it may seem silly, but what I do is I weigh them, and then later, if I want to plant a certain amount, I know how many to weigh out. Does that make sense? Well, if there's 250 seeds in there and they weigh 0.0258 grams, if I wanted 100 seeds, I could weigh out a certain amount, and then I'd know how many seeds I've got. Rough leaf dogwood, just an example, drying. That's probably 400 seeds or so. Okay, now we're gonna change gears. This is all about the requirements that the seed has to germinate. Okay. In other words, a lot of you buy seeds in packets at stores for your garden. Well, they've already been treated. Somebody's already done things to them. They may have done things to them. If you buy bluebonnet seeds, they've already been treated so that they'll come up during that year. Anyway, so here's the rules. First of all, if you want to grow native plants, these are the Bibles. The first one was published in 1986. The lady's name is Jill Noakes, N-O-K-E-S. She lives in Austin. We actually had her here for the Native Plant Society meeting about in 2000, somewhere around 2000, 2001 or 2, somewhere in that area. She came down and with her new book. This thing is, first of all, the front part of this is how to do this, how to do that, all the rules or things, the way that you might want to know, soils, and different techniques. The latter part, which is about 2/3 of the book, is a recipe book. And it has each plant by common name and by scientific name. And then it has a recipe of do this, do this, do this, do this, and they should grow. It also tells you roughly when to pick them, when the seeds will be available. It's for the whole state, but there's a lot of stuff for the hill country in it. So the first one, imbibition, water. Plants won't grow without taking in water. So here's our little rules right here. You can just look at them. Always hated people that read their PowerPoints. Rainwater, we use rainwater because it's got goodies in it. It's got bacteria and stuff in it. It's usually slightly acidic. And the scarification we'll talk about in a minute. You soak the seeds until they swell, or they try to swell. A lot of the seed packets will have on them, the garden seeds will have on them, soak them in water before you plant them. I think lettuce seeds have that, if I'm not mistaken. So seeds we use, some of the ones we do take days to swell up, which is what they're supposed to do to absorb water. And so we put them with air stones from an aquarium, air stones, and make them, so it just keeps it oxygenated and they don't go foul. And then some, if you put water in some of them, they get goofy. Texas barberry and big red sage, if you put them on them, they make a gel that clops all the seeds together and they get stuck where they won't even come apart. It's kind of weird. So you have to be careful of those. I try to, when I do those, I try to soak them in water for a few days, for a while, and then I try to wipe all the gel off. So here's an example. This is Boerne bean. On the left are and these are beans, so that makes sense if you've ever seen beans swell up when you're cooking them, same idea. So on the left-hand side, we have Boerne beans. They're about the size of, how big? However big that is. They're pretty small. And then the other one, then after they've been soaked in water for a day, they swell up. So they have imbibed. What? Oh, that's the next part I'm going to talk about. Scarification. See, the problem with a lot of these native plants, particularly the ones that the seeds germinate in the summer or fall, they have a thick seed coat. And what happens is a lot of them are designed to either sit out in the nature and be rotted by funguses, so the seed coat gets soft and they can imbibe water, or a lot of them are also designed to go through animals, so that the animal's digestive system wears the seed coat down. They also get deposited in a nice bit of fertilizer. So anyway, so I'm going to talk about that. That's what this title is, scarification. Scarification means literally scarring the seed, or scarring the seed coat. The seed has a coat that may or may not be permeable to water when it's mature. And so the trick is to make sure that the seed, or allow the seed to absorb water. If you've ever seen mountain laurel, you all know what I'm talking about. They're rocks. They stay rocks forever. And it's a really tough thing to do, to get them to swell up and germinate. But if you, so here we go. Weaken the seed coat to allow imbibition. There's the natural processes. The artificial one we use mostly is concentrated sulfuric acid. And I just want to caution you, concentrated sulfuric acid is really dangerous stuff. And you shouldn't, if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't mess with it at all. I've got quite a few pairs of shorts with holes in them. A shirt, 2 or 3 shirts. And that's from less than a drop. I mean, it's a teeny tiny amount.
If it gets on your skin, you're gonna wash it off. immediately.
Right, correct. Yeah, it'll burn your skin. Yeah.
What molar, sulfuric acid, normal,
The stuff we use is 18 molar. If you, I was a chemistry teacher once.
well, I was thinking.
They list it as between 93 and 97%. You can buy I paid $135 for 2.5 quarts. So you get an idea how much. These days it's real expensive. I used to pay less, half on that years ago. But a small amount goes a long way. So, okay, so you can use abrasives, a file, sandpaper, rock. When they do bluebonnet seeds, I've heard people using rock tumblers. They'll put the seeds in a rock tumbler and tumble them around. I've heard people boil them. I'm not sure why they do that, but I've heard that. But there are all kinds of ways you can make the seed coat have a hole in it or wear it so that it'll absorb water. If you have of course, this is where I have to explain this. I've tried to sandpaper a hole in a mountain laurel. I sandpapered the ends of my fingers mostly, trying to hold the silly thing. I have a friend who has a small pair of wire cutters, and he just cuts holes in them. He sat around one day and when he had and just cut little holes in them, and once you cut a hole in them, they'll absorb water. Yeah. There you go. I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow you away in a minute, though. Really. Yeah, this. All right, so here we have mountain laurels. So here we have mountain laurels that have been soaked. By the way, the mountain laurel seed I soak in concentrated sulfuric acid for almost an hour. They're really hard to crack. Yeah. And then, excuse me, just a second. Then I soaked them in water for 2 days to get them to swell up, and then you can plant them. Sorry, go ahead, Will. Yeah, I was going to tell them about that. Yeah. So here's the trick. So we talked about this. Good memory. That was 12 years ago. A fellow that's not around anymore told me a trick, and when I first moved here with mountain laurels, and it's a hoot. On the 4th of July or the day before, go out and find a mountain laurel tree. Pull the pods off, take them over to the house, with very sharp pruners or something, cut the seeds out of the pods. And they look like garbanzo beans, chickpeas. They're soft, they're fleshy, not real soft, but they're firm, but they're fleshy. Plant them that day or the next day, and they'll be up in 4 days. Seriously, it works. She goes, no, Suzanne says, they're not, no, this big. 4th of July in Boerne, yes. Or which?
Weaker than the ones.
No idea. I can't grow mountain laurels. I get them up about this tall and they stay that way for years and years. So stratification. Now this is the second part of this, the second requirement. This is a tricky one. It's called stratification. And basically what it's about is many seeds require a chill or a warm period or both before they'll sprout. When I was a little kid, I ate an apple. I was about 6 or 7. I ate an apple and I had a bunch of apple seeds, and I was going, wow, I'm going to plant them. So I planted them, and guess what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because they require a cold period of approximately 75 to 80 days. They have to be chilled at a certain temperature for a period of time before they'll sprout. And it's something we all have to be aware of if we're going to try to grow some of this stuff. So here we go. The chillest approximate winter. Around here, the temperature is about, as it says up there, 39 to 41 degrees. So anything about that, in that temperature range for most seeds that are that we have in this countryside, they'll meet that requirement. The seed has to have absorbed water. So if you put a dry seed in there, all you're going to have is a bag of dry seeds. And they'll store them for a nice, really long period of time, probably, but they'll still be a bunch of dry seeds. And the books, like the Noakes books, have the recipe for how long to chill different plants. Usually 30 to 60 days is good. I chill smoke tree seeds for 96 days. Big tooth maple, 90 days. Red buds, 60 days. So, and if you think about it, it's in the winter. So generally we just put them in the refrigerator and let them sit there and then mark a date on the calendar when we're going to plant them. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yes. Otherwise, you'll just have a bag of seeds that are preserved forever and ever. Then there's another part. Some plants have what is called warm stratification. Many of the prunus, the creek plum, the cherry, the Mexican plum, all hatch about are available usually around the first part of, anywhere between June and September is when the fruit is ready. But the embryo inside is not. In other words, if you plant them right then, you might not get anything. So what they do is we warm stratify them. We put them in a bag of peat moss after we've cleaned them. And we let them sit around in a warm environment, in our case, just inside the house somewhere, for a period of until about November. So if we pick the seed in September, they'll sit there for 2 months. Meanwhile, during that period of time, the seeds are, the embryos inside the seeds are developing. Then those seeds all require about 60 to 70 days of cold stratification. Or then they go in the refrigerator. It's a lot, isn't it? Okay. Well, I've got, at the very end of this, I've got an easy way to do all this stuff. So this is all the hard part. It's going to make it look. But here's the whole process. You have to imagine that here's a cherry seed. It falls off the tree and it falls on the ground. An animal eats it. It goes through the animal's digestive tract, and it is scarified, right? Then it's sitting in warm, we presume, in a warm place for a while. For how long? Well, the cherry was ripe when it was eaten. That was in September. It's going to sit there till November, December, and then it's going to get cold. You follow? So we're actually just duplicating what would actually happen in nature. In fact, that's the best way to think about it. Is in a lot of cases you're just duplicating what happens in nature. So we use peat moss and perlite to store these things in the refrigerator, by the way. This peat moss we run through a sifter, a 1/4-inch hardware cloth, just so it doesn't make big chunks. All of this, and when you do stratify and put things in the refrigerator, the thing must be damp. It can't be dry. It has to be. You're trying to model what would happen underneath a tree that has a bunch of leaves. So you're looking for that kind of a system. Prunus rivularis. They bloom in mid-March, all alongside the sides of the roads. At least they used to, before they dug all the fiber optic tunnels. This is what they look like when they're in fruit, and this is usually about in early July. The fruit are about the size of a marble. Here they are in the bag. And what are they doing? They're rotting, decomposing. Here they are. I didn't want to show you that because it was so but here they are in a Ziploc bag. Now this is with peat moss. I've dated it, so I'm keeping track of them. This was done in 2015. So I guess that's the last time I did this. And I picked them on July 5th. I put them to warm on I processed them on about July 20th or thereabouts. And at least I give me enough information so I know what I did. And I won't lose them. It's really hard to look through the bag and figure out what's in there anyway. So. No, I'm going to show you the refrigerator. So after we done this, I'll tell you about how we do this, but those are creek plums. And they're a year old. And now we're going to switch to maple trees for a minute. So what if we don't, one of the things we've really focused on for the last 20 years or so has been growing lost maples, big tooth maples. And so they also we use the same processes for them. Now, these little seeds do not need to be scarified. We don't have to mess with them because the seed coat is very thin. We pick them in late September or early October by the thousands. One year I picked approximately 45,000 seeds. And we grew 5,000 plants, by the way, from that. So you can kind of get an idea that that's not very good. 5,000 out of 45,000. Anyway. So here the seeds are in peat moss and in a bag. And I'm going to cold stratify them. And by the way, I blow the bags up. Because, well, they are, let's see how I can say this. They are, as seeds, they're just like us. They need oxygen. Okay. And when you breathe out, you still have 17% oxygen in your breath. Enough to keep another person alive, right? Right. Okay, so here's my refrigerator. Now, you have to look at this. It's avocado. It's a GE. And I got it as I used a carpenter, and a lady gave that to me instead of money. And it's worked for the last, I don't know, it's still working.
It's gonna outlive you, Chuck.
Maybe.
We have one like that.
Huh? I think it's a GE. I'm not sure. It's kind of rusty at the bottom. It's in a different building. It's not in the house or even close to it. So, and those are all bags of maple seeds for the most part. Yeah. Yes. Yes, I rotate the bags. We'll get there in a minute. Yes. The bags get changed on top to bottom, and there's another change that takes place too. That's about 30 bags of seeds there. So if you do them, and there's 1,500 in a bag, and I know I counted those too. So what I do is I take the bags out of the refrigerator periodically, and I lay them down on the, this is on the living room floor. She lets me. It's okay. And we let them stay there for at the first. We do that. These guys get 96 days or 95 days, or whatever it is, for the cold stratification. So what they do is they need to know that spring is coming, right? So what we do after about a month or two, we open them up, lay them out on the floor, and give them a little bit of air, check the moisture. Plastic bags are permeable to water, believe it or not. These bags are, and they will dry out. So you have to kind of be careful about that. If you're leaving the refrigerator for months and months, you're going to find out the stuff's all dry inside. But anyway, can I count those? But anyway, we take them out and we check them and put air. We put some more air in them. We air them out. Change the gases inside, and check the water, and then we put them back in the refrigerator. As we get closer to the date when they're going to start sprouting, and they'll sprout in the bags, we then do this more often for longer periods of time. So basically we're saying spring is coming, here we go, it's warm, grow. No, but the first interval is about a month after we plant them, put them in the refrigerator. The second interval is about a month. So that's 60 days. And then it gets closer every 2 weeks or so.
Do you stay with them?
I don't sing much anymore, but yeah. So here are what the sprouts look like. And what we do, and this is where it gets really tedious. We open up every bag. It's filled with half peat moss, half seeds. We pour them out in a tray and we look and find all the seeds. And we do this 3 times in the winter, in the spring. And we pull the seeds out. One year we pulled out 5,000. It took forever. It took 2.5 days at about 2 of us, 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day. It's very time consuming, but the trees are worth it. And that's our rationale. So here's what they look like when they sprout. Here's what they look like when they're little. This is about a month and a half or so after they sprout. This is what they look like when they're on the ground. And that's all. Next topic. People want to know what we plant in. And basically, I'm not going to go into this in any great detail, but most of the time when we're planting seeds, we use a sifted in a 1/4-inch hardware cloth mixture of mostly organic stuff, pine bark mulch and stuff like that. I do use a thing called cedar fiber. Cedar fiber is a thing that there's a company out in there's 2 companies, one in Junction and one in Lakey. They crush cedar trunks of the ash juniper and they extract the oils out of it and sell them to perfume companies. So, and they give you the stuff, the cedar fiber. But basically we use these mostly, if you think about it, our planting mix, and most of our mixes are at least 60 to 70% pine bark mulch or some organic material, not water absorbing organic material that stays fairly dry. So here's some smoke tree seeds, 400, chopstick, tweezers. Smoke tree seeds are about the size are tiny. They're only about 2 or 3 millimeters across. Madrones. There are the seeds, the fruit, the whole fruit. Yeah, you take the fruit, madrones, you take the fruit and you squish it into the top of a pot and then you're done.
So you don't.
Yeah.
do the steps.
Potting soil that we use, again, is mostly cedar fiber and pine bark mulch. 4-way mix has dirt in it, I mean actual soil. And we use crushed limestone as a buffer, and that's just to keep it from going too acidic. And crushed limestone is sold as manufactured sand. All the stuff we get at Stone and Soil down on I-10. Actually, I have to change that. They quit making 4-way mix, so now we use stuff from the Saws treatment plant. Works good.
Where do you get it?
Stone and Soil. Yeah, it's composted Saws material with sand, so it works great for plants. And it's heavier. It's too heavy to just plant stuff in, but with cedar fiber and pine bark, it makes. All right. So there we are. Imbibition, scarification, stratification. Words for the day. And now, So here's the deal. Let's say you don't want to mess with all this stuff. You just want to plant some stuff, okay? What to do? There's a lady back in the day, and this is, again, some people may know this. There was a nursery in Tarpley called Gunsight Mountain. The lady's name was Dorothy Matiza, and she was a friend of Lady Bird Johnson. And she had a little native plant nursery up on the creek. It was a beautiful place, and she had some huge beds She had sand beds. And she'd get a bunch of acorns of different species, throw them in the bed, step on them, walk away. And in the spring, the acorns, the oak trees would come up, and by fall, they were all like this. The sand was soft. She'd dig them up, put them in pots, and that was it. So we came up with the easy 5-gallon pot method, basically the same idea, except we're using a 5-gallon pot. And it's real simple. You get a 5-gallon pot, you fill it with soil, 2 inches from the top, and there's a reason for that, because this is going to be outside somewhere and it's going to rain. If you fill the pot up to the top, the soil and your seeds are going to wash away. So you want to remember that. Add seeds lots. More seeds than you think. Many of the plants that we grow, you think just like nursery seeds or seeds that are vegetable seeds, not all of them grow in nature. In fact, some places, grass seeds are notably poor. Oftentimes the germination rate is only about 10% or less. People buy big wad of grass seeds and nothing happens because, and these are native grasses now. So you have to kind of, keep an eye on that. Top with sand or soil and mulch. Sand is good because it'll keep the seeds in place. What's the rule about planting seeds? Everybody knows the rule? How deep? No more than 2.5 times the diameter of the seed. If you plant it any deeper than that, it has trouble getting up. If you plant it any shallower, it might dry out too fast. So about twice the depth or diameter of the seed. Acorns, you just take the acorns, lay them on their side and squish them in the soil and you're done. Okay, then the next part, you put them underneath a tree somewhere or somewhere in the shade and let them be. And if everything works well, they will get natural scarification because they will have natural funguses and things that'll eat them up as they're sitting underneath the tree. They'll absorb water because it's going to rain on them. You might want to water them once in a while, and they will naturally stratify because they're outdoors.
Summer, you've got the seed, or late summer, you've got the dry seed.
Most of right. We grow woody plants, so that's what I'm familiar with. And so the problem is that all of the woody plants we deal with require some kind of stratification, some type. So we plant them. We usually wait until October or so when we know we're going to get rain, and then we plant them and put them outside. Okay, almost done. So here's linden, bunch of seeds, lots of seeds. Linden, later. By the way, 2 years. Some seeds don't want to germinate. I'm not kidding you. So if you use a 5-gallon pot method, it may take a long time. Rusty blackeye viburnum, they're in there somewhere. The seeds are. We put squirrel cages on because the squirrels come down and eat all this stuff. And it's a real simple thing to make. This is what they look like when they sprout. They sprout real early, usually in the end of February, first part of March. This is what they look like. Again, these are all 5-gallon pots. We do the same thing. And this is what they look like later on in the summer. And the nice part about this is what you do is you let them grow like this. And in time, what happens is they self-prune. And so they'll get nice height to them. Lots of plants like this will grow and they'll get really nice height. In the fall, you just simply take the pot, lay it on its side somewhere, wherever you do your planting, hit it a few times, roll it around, hit it some more, pull the pot off and start breaking up the roots. And then you can plant them. And you do this when the dormant period is in the winter. And you can repot them. Yeah. Yeah, after the leaves have fallen off, yes. Oh, by the way, rusty blackclaw seeds take 1.5 years to come up. It's cool. They collect them in November, They get a cold stratification, then they get a warm stratification through the following summer, and then they get a cold stratification, and then they come up. Roughleaf dogwood. I'm just showing you some examples of the 5-gallon pot thing, how it works. Red yucca. These are 10-year-old plants. I forgot to take them out, so I just left them in there and they all bonsai'd. They're still good. Lazy oaks. And that's all.